everyone now.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Todd, are we ready to go?
Ashley, all set?
We're all set? Yep.
All set.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. So I will start by calling to order the Public Improvement Commission hearing of March 17th, 2022. Mr. Lyman, would you please take a roll call?
Certainly. Would the representative from the Public Works Department please state his or her name?
Yasha Franklin Hodge.
Property Management Department?
Joseph Callahan.
Transportation Department?
Amy Gording.
Water and Sewer Commission?
Denise Devlin?
Disabilities Commission?
Sarah Leon.
And my understanding is that Inspectional Services is not represented at this time, but we do have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Lyman. So our first order of business today is the hearing minutes. So at the request of the Public Improvement Commission staff, the acceptance of the minutes of the PIC hearing held on March 3rd, 2022. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the hearing minutes of March 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. All right, on to our first public hearing. Public hearing 1 on a joint petition by the City of Boston Mayor's Office of Housing and the Boston Redevelopment Authority, BPA Boston Planning and Development Agency, for the widening, relocation, and extension of the existing right-of-way lines at Harold Street Public Way, Roxbury, from Holworthy Street to Hollander Street. This was a new business on March 3rd, 2022, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division, Widening, Relocation, and Extension Plan, Harold Street, Public Way, Roxbury, 4 sheets dated October 15th, 2021. Would the presenters introduce themselves and their affiliations and provide a brief overview of the project and any reports back from our last new business conversation?
Good morning. It's James Smith with the Mayor's Office of Housing. I'm actually here to request a continuance on this matter. We're in the process of finalizing revisions based on comments received at the last hearing, and we hope to return for the next one.
Excellent. And will the 31st, I believe, is our next hearing date. Would that be sufficient for this continuance?
It should be, yes. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Do I have a motion to continue this matter to the meeting on March 31st?
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing item number 1 to March 31st.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. All right. Public hearing number 2 on a joint petition by the City of Boston Mayor's Office of Housing and the Boston Redevelopment Authority, BPA Boston Planning and Development Agency, for the discontinuance of any and all rights to travel the public may have had within a section of Holworthy Street Public Way, Roxbury, located on its southerly side, generally west of Harold Street. This was new business from March 3rd, 2022, and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Discontinuance Plan, Holworthy Street, Roxbury, 1 sheet dated May 18th, 2021. How would the petitioner like to proceed?
I request to continue this matter as well.
Can I have, and also to the 31st?
Yes.
Can I have do I hear a motion to continue this to the 31st?
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing item number 2 as read into record by the chair to March 31st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. On to public hearing number 3 on a joint petition by the City of Boston Mayor's Office of Housing and the Boston Redevelopment Authority, BPA Boston Planning and Development Agency, for the discontinuance of any and all rights to travel the public may have had within a section of Hollander Street, Public Way, Roxbury, located on its northerly side, generally west of Harold Street. This was new business from March 3rd, 2022, and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Discontinuance Plan, Hollander Street, Roxbury, one sheet dated May 18th, 2021. How would the petitioners like to proceed?
James Smith, Mayor's Office of Housing, request to continue this matter to March 31st, 2022 as well.
Excellent. Do I hear a motion to continue this matter as requested?
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing item number 3 as read into the record by the chair till March 31st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstain or oppose? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing number 4 on a petition by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority for the making of specific repairs within Freeman Street Public Way, Dorchester, located at its intersection with the Fields Corner Busway, generally north of Faulkner Street, consisting of curb realignment, sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, street lighting infrastructure, traffic signal infrastructure, and bollards. This was new business from March 3rd, 2022, and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Freeman Street at Fields Corner Busway, Dorchester, one sheet dated March 2022. Would the presenters please introduce themselves and give a brief introduction to the proposal and any changes that have been made since the previous hearing?
Sure, thank you. Lou Rubito, Jacobs Engineering Group, representing the MBTA.
Catherine Quigley, representing the MBTA.
William Huang, representing Jacobs, that represents the MBTA. All right, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Good seeing you again. So we are here for the public hearing. We presented new business on March 3rd, 2022 at the last public hearing. So as a reminder, we are working on accessibility improvements projects for the MBTA, and this is going on at 2 stations. I know that you were talking about only Freeman Street at the busway, so would you like us to present it one at a time? Because I know we split it off.
Yeah, that would be great if we could start with Freeman Street, and then we will move on to the next public hearing.
Sounds good, sounds good. Okay, so Freeman Street at Fields Corner Busway. So bear with me as I separate these two out. There we go. Okay, so this is the latest PIC plan. As a reminder, we are working on 3 of the 4 corners of the intersection. We are building a curb extension on the east side of the intersection, and we are redoing the curb ramps on the south and the west side. And here's a quick rendering of what it will look like. Okay. So here's the curb extension that we're building out. We're splitting out the apex ramp into 2 directional ramps. We are moving this post out of the path of travel way, and then we're shifting the lighting to expand the width of the path of travel as well. On the other intersection, or at the other corner, we're adding a bollard here to prevent or to deter vehicles and specifically SU units from making that left turn onto the busway. And then the post that dictates an accessible path north of the intersection will be relocated just adjacent to this building. And then we're also adding a stop sign and a do not enter sign and a no left turn sign on this approach. And then here we're reconstructing this curb ramp to be level at this portion. And it's not shown in this diagram, but we're also adding I believe it's a no left turn sign here because of the concern that this island will be a tripping hazard. So I'm just gonna backtrack to the plans again. So comments received from the last meeting was to add a dimension line for the roadway width. So here we added 14 feet, and then the curb extension is 6 feet from the existing curb line. And then another question was regarding whether or not there could be a signpost here as opposed to a bollard. and we explored the option to add a signpost. However, because of the width of the signs and how close it is to the curb line, we're afraid that vehicles might interfere with the vehicle path, and it might hit the vehicles that pass by it. So we're going to have to stick with the bollard at the corner. And then the other portion was adding a sign here in this island, and we're proposing the R5 sign, which is the no left turn sign. And finally, the last comment was regarding raised crossings. So we looked into raising the crossings. However, due to the nature of this project as an accessibility project and impacts to drainage and buses, traversing over raised crossings, we decided that it would not be the best solution for this issue that we're trying to solve. And so with that, I think those were all the comments regarding Freeman Street. Are there any further questions or follow-up comments?
Yeah, thank you. We'll start with the commission if there are members of the commission if there are comments or questions. Hearing none, any comments or questions from PIC staff or members of the public?
Just hoping that the T will confirm that they will maintain that bollard if ever needed in the future.
Can we get an answer to that from somebody from the MBTA?
We'll have to look into that. We're replacing in kind with compliant curb cuts, and the bollard was at the request of the city.
Okay, we can discuss that offline, I guess.
Okay.
Todd, I believe there's a comment in the chat box.
Yes, so Mr. Kirkpatrick asked if questions are questions entertained from the public. The answer is yes. And now, if you are interested in speaking on this particular matter, now would be the time. We will, for any matter that is either new business or a public hearing, there will be an opportunity for the public to speak, unless it is continued as we did with some of the earlier items. So we are open for comment on this matter at this time from the public. All right, hearing no further comments, I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 4?
I'll make a motion to approve public hearing item number 4 is read into record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Moving on to public hearing number 5 on a petition by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority for the making of specific repairs within the following roadways in Boston proper, consisting of curb realignment, sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps and traffic signal infrastructure. Clarendon Street at its intersection with Columbus Avenue at its intersection with Clarendon Street. So it's new business from our March 3rd, 2022 hearing, and is shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Clarendon Street at Columbus Ave, South End, one sheet dated March 2022. Would the presenters please introduce themselves again and state their affiliations, provide a brief overview of the project, and specifically report back on any outstanding questions or revisions resulting from the new business hearing.
Thank you again, Lou Rubito, Jacobs Engineering Group, representing the MBTA.
Catherine Quigley, SWA, MBTA.
And William Huang from Jacobs, representing MBTA. Great, so thank you again. So for Clarendon and Columbus, just going to continue off the previous one. Here's an existing look at what Clarendon Columbus looks like. This is the north corner of northeast corner of the intersection. Our proposal shown here is to split off the apex ramp into directional ramps as well as add a curb extension. This results in the removal of one parking meter. However, it increases the safety of this corner as well as the compliance with accessibility guidelines tremendously. And in talking with BTD Signals, they will like a video detector after replacing the post, one of the pedestrian posts. So here is what the corner is proposed to look like. And the detectable warning panels are red per Landmarks District requirements because this is in the South End Landmarks District. And so with this, I'm gonna go back to the latest GIC plans. The comments received from the previous hearing were to confirm whether or not the reciprocal ramps were compliant, and they are compliant, and we have documentation of that if needed. And then the project will confirm that MBTA handles snow removal from the subject corner. So yes, MBTA is coordinating snow removal at this location. And then, let's see, curb realignment should not negatively impact any future Columbus Ave bike plans, and we do not anticipate any impacts to future Columbus Ave bike plans. MassDOT is aware of the plans. And I think that's it for all the comments.
Excellent.
So
Thank you very
further? Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much. And any comments or questions from the commission? Any comments or questions from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, though I will ask the public to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of their screen should they choose to or wish to add testimony to any particular hearing.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve public hearing number 5?
Make a motion to approve a petition by the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority for the making of specific repairs in Clarendon Street and Columbus Ave, as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstain? So moved. Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on to our new business for the day. So our first order of new business.
Sorry, Chief, one more thing. I will mention that Brian Ronan from ISD has joined the hearing.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Brian. So moving on to new business item number 1, Church Street at 212 Stewart Street, Boston proper, pedestrian easement on a petition by GUGV 212 Stewart Street property owning 212 Stewart property owning LLC. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves and their affiliations and walk us through what is being proposed here?
Yeah, good morning. You have Ryan Souls here with GUGV 212 Stewart, doing business as Graystar. We're the developer on the 212 Stewart project, which is wrapping up here, and we have members of our design team. I believe John Schmidt is going to do most of the talking with Niche Engineering, but I just wanted to introduce this. This pedestrian easement concept was introduced during the entitlement phase. There, you can see here the graphic that's rendered. There's a public plaza that's really the entrance to the Bay Village neighborhood, and through the entitlement process, the idea was to set the ground floors of our building back to allow for a more generous pedestrian plaza and entryway. And there was a memorandum of understanding that was entered with the BPDA to record a pedestrian easement here prior to certificate of occupancy, and that's the kind of the reason that we're here today, just to formalize that conversation. So I'll pass it over to John to go from there. John, you may be on mute if you're talking.
Thank you. Sorry about that. John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. Before you is the pedestrian easement plan. The pedestrian easement is approximately 3.75 feet wide and extends approximately 53 feet long, the length of the property line. And as shared, the intent is to allow the public access up to the building front and improves the whole pedestrian experience within the plaza area itself. The plan has been reviewed and blessed by all the city agencies, including disabilities.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the commission? Any comments or questions from PIC staff or the public?
None,
Right.
sorry.
All right. Don't see any raised hands, so hearing no comments or questions, are you prepared to come back for a public hearing in 2 weeks on the 31st?
We look forward to it.
Excellent. We will see you in 2 weeks. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to new business item number 2, Nevins Hill Way at 25 Fidelis Way, Brighton, a layout approval on a joint petition by New Boston Ventures LLC, DBA 143 Washington LLC, Avalon Bay Communities Inc., DBA Brighton Avalon LLC, and the Boston Housing Authority. Will the petitioners please introduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through the proposal?
Sure, I'll kick us off. This is Tim McGovern with New Boston Ventures presenting today about the creation of the private way. We do have a few team members here, including John Schmidt from Niche, who will be going over the plan in detail, as well as Harry Collings and Nick Zazula. So on the screen here, I'll just walk you through it. I thought it'd be helpful to do a quick overview of the site plan, just to help provide context for the private way. So this project was originally permitted as 139 to 149 Washington Street, and it consisted of 2 separate buildings. You can see the one in the front is Avalon Bay, and then there's one in the rear up on a hill that's labeled Proponents Building. The front building is facing on Washington Street, and the garage to that building is accessible off Fidelis Way. And the rear building is accessible by traveling up Fidelis Way and going across the Boston Housing Authority property, which is an existing parking lot that we're expanding, and then going up the drive aisle to our building. John, if you want to go to the next page. This is just a color-coded version of that. So in orange is Fidelis Way, which is a private way. And in yellow is the property owned by the Boston Housing Authority, and the purple is where that property line is to our building and the drive aisle. If you want to go to the next one, John. And we have an easement agreement in place that's shown in red that allows for us to travel along Fidelis Way. And you see the boundary of the easement stops where we make that left-hand turn into the parking lot area. And so the reason for this private way is that when we were seeking a building permit with ISD, we were given the address of 25 Fidelis Way for our rear building, because that is where the vehicular access comes off of on Fidelis Way. And so by using a Fidelis Way address, it's likely that the guests of our building or deliveries, maintenance trucks could likely miss the turn because it looks like a parking lot and end up driving around the Boston Housing Authority property, which would mean that people associated with our building would be going beyond the boundary of our agreed upon easement. And we've already seen this happen during construction with our workers, causing a lot of confusion and disruption to the Boston Housing Authority tenants. And so in order to prevent this from happening, we're trying to get a unique identifying address associated with our building that is not associated with Fidelis Way, with its own street sign. So that's why we're proposing Nevins Hill Way. And this wasn't an issue until we did our subdivision plan and permitting with ISD that the address issue came about. So I think I'll turn it over to John to go through the plan in a little more detail.
Sure. So at the intersection of Nevinsville Way we have a tabletop crosswalk, so that'd be just a tabletop crosswalk through here. As vehicles come through this section of the right-of-way in this area is approximately 61 feet wide. We're providing 6.5-foot concrete sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. We have 7-foot wide parallel parking along this section here, and we are maintaining the 18-foot perpendicular parking depth spaces that are currently used by the Boston Housing Authority and are also dedicated to the Boston Housing Authority. As we take this turn here, we have a crosswalk here, so pedestrians can come in and walk this way, crosswalk here. And as we come up the hill at this bend, the bend provides a 25-foot wide traveled way. And then as we pull up here to this section here, we have a 21-foot wide travel way. On the left side, we have a 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk, a 70-foot wide parallel parking, 21-foot path of travel, and a 7-foot wide parking and a 5-foot wide sidewalk. And at the top here, as we come up here, we have a raised crosswalk, so pedestrians who are walking up this side can cross the raised tabletop crosswalk here, and then from there we'll go through the plaza into the building. And here's the actual drawing. So we have the tabletop here, vehicles can come in here, perpendicular parking dedicated to Boston Housing Authority, parallel spaces down here. So we take this bend, we have this crosswalk here, and as we come up up towards the building itself, we have two-way travel with a 20-foot wide travel way, 7 feet parallel parking on both sides, and a 5-foot sidewalk to the right and a 6-foot sidewalk to the left. The sidewalk here comes up here. This is again a tabletop with a stop line, so vehicles that are entering this shared use zone literally have to stop and have observed as they enter this. Pedestrians walk across here, and then through a series of pavers, identifiers, there's a path of travel that brings it to the main entrance here. Vehicles that come in here would come up, stop, circulate through, and then out. I know that Sarah hasn't had an opportunity to review these in any great detail. So Sarah, any comments you'd like to share, we're available, anytime to review them with you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments from members of the commission?
Thank you, John. Thank you for the project update as well for this project. Is there any feasibility on expanding the width of the sidewalks? I think 5 feet and 6 feet, 6.5 are really at the minimum of our standards. And I think with the addition of possible signage, it can get a little bit tight for the pedestrian path. So is there any opportunity to expand the sidewalks to our city standards of 7 feet?
Unfortunately, there is not. It is extremely tight up here. As you can see, we're really fighting grade here. We actually end up with a small retaining curb here to allow it to be functional. And this is a private way. And the sidewalk itself will be concrete. There will be no tree pits. There will be no obstructions within the sidewalk itself. And down here, where we possibly have signage, we'd have the bump outs that the signage would be allowed to be put on. For instance, we have a stop sign down here that's on the bump out itself. So we spent a lot of time trying to explore wider sidewalks, and it just wasn't feasible for this project without great cost to the project.
Don, can you add a comment regarding the street lighting component of this equation?
So Boston Street Lighting has reviewed this, and we will have, actually we do have street lights here that are behind the sidewalk that will project over the sidewalk.
Are they overhead power or underground power?
It would be below grade power and be fed from the building.
Okay. Second point, John, as you know quite well, the dedicated parking spots that are there. That's quite okay as a private way function, but it is not at all compatible with the public street. So I'm going to assume that all parties, including the Corporation Council or the Council for BHA, recognizes that this street will not be in a future petition to be turned as a public street, as long as that is known at this point to all parties. You follow what I'm saying, right? Because that was
Yes, this is unconventional, and it's only here because it's an existing condition. And with this constraint, we understand that this street would never be proposed as a public way.
So thought somehow that little bit of language needs to be codified somewhere when we record these plans in the Registry of Deeds. Okay?
We'll include that language in the PIC order.
Also, that these guys will do snow removal, right? Like, I don't think we're coming up here to come around this thing or whatever this is, and particularly not to plow in who have BHA parking spaces. So, like, I think that from Fidelis up to the end, you guys should take on the snow.
Understood. Private way will be the maintenance responsibility of the property, of the developer.
Can I also say something? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, this is Dean Papadimitra. I'm counsel to the Boston Housing Authority. And I do just want to mention about those parking spaces. This is a private way, so our understanding is that the general public is not allowed to park on those parking spaces, and only BHA residents can.
So you can, as a private way, right, this can be signed, but it is then enforced by whomever is the owner, right? So like, if there's people parking there and they get stickers, and there's a towing company, that's all organized privately. BTD will not enforce these parking spaces at all. So you can regulate them how you see fit, but you also then enforce them per your own regulation.
That's correct. Yeah, that is correct.
And what I also like to note, and we'll have this on the final drawing, is that we will provide a street sign that says Nevins Way, Private Way, Nevins Hill Way, Private Way, so it's clear to anyone who's entering the parcel understands that it's a private way and not Boston Public Works responsibility.
Excellent. Any additional questions or comments from the commission?
I guess what level of vehicle can we turn around up here? Like what would get stuck?
So the fire department has reviewed this when we went through the ISD permitting process. But for moving trucks, the idea of a moving truck would come, which would be your largest truck.
Yeah.
Box truck would come in, it would park here, and then we could unload. So the idea, it would do the 3-point turn to get out of here. Smaller vehicles have the capacity to do around the circle.
John, not the private utilities like gas and juice, but the sewer lines and the water lines, you have had conclusive conversations with Ms. Devlin's team to understand who owns them, who makes them, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I received an email from Denise that she was okay with this. We have full site plan approval for both this project and the Avalon project before it, and there are cross easements between both parties for the utilities, water, sewer, storm, electrical, gas.
Thank you.
Any additional comments from members of the commission? Any comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, none.
Is 2 weeks enough time to address what you've heard today and come back for your public hearing?
Yes, we believe we'll be ready. And Sarah, we're happy to reach out and communicate. If you have any additional comments you'd like to share, please do so, and we'll incorporate them as best we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We will see you on March 31st.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business 3, 3353 Washington Street, Green Street, West Roxbury, pedestrian easement on petition by 3353 Washington Development, LLC. Would petitioners please introduce themselves and what is being, their affiliations and what is proposed.
Sure, good morning. My name is James Dowling from Howard Stein Hudson. We're project engineers. I'm also joined this morning by Maddie Blanchard from Howard Stein Hudson and by Hugh Miller from 3353 Washington Street LLC, who's the applicant. We have prepared a couple of slides just to give some project context before we get to pedestrian easement. Somebody, if you don't mind just going on to the next slide. Project's located at the intersection of Washington Street and Green Street in Jamaica Plain. Next slide, please. A couple of viewports here from what you would see if you're on Washington Street. Project consists of 5 stories with 45 residential units, approximately 2,000 square feet of commercial ground floor space with 24 off-street parking spaces. Next slide. Another view from Washington Street. Next slide, please, Mike. And this is a view from Green Street looking back up towards Washington Street. Next slide. So during the PPA process, there was a request made to increase the width of the existing sidewalks surrounding the property. Accommodations were made on the ground floor to meet this. And as a result, we have 8-foot wide sidewalks on Green Street and 10-foot wide sidewalks on Washington Street. The pedestrian easement extends approximately 40 feet along Washington Street and approximately 125 feet on Green Street with a variable width for a total of 476 square feet. Although a specific repair plan isn't required for the project, having reviewed the existing grades and elevations of the existing sidewalks, most, if not all, did not meet ADA compliance. Therefore, the applicant is willing to remove and reset all curbing and pour brand new sidewalks along Green Street and Washington Street. BPDA staff had also requested a reduction in the size of existing curb cuts for a project, which the applicant is also willing to do. And lastly, at the intersection of Green and Washington Street and Glen Road, there are 4 apex ramps that the applicant is also willing to remove and reconstruct to meet ADA compliance. With that, happy to answer any questions that commission members or public may have.
To everything that you just said about the commitment for the ramps and all of that stuff, while I know that that can be done, right, like potentially by just posting deposits and whatnot, when you break up those apex ramps, we've got a lot of stuff on these corners. And so kind of, I think how that works out, if it's not on a specific repair plan, I think it's probably still needs to be shown more than just through the permitting phase of things, the limits of your sidewalk reconstruction and how these ramps will be split.
Just to clarify, we're not splitting the apex ramps, we're just repouring them.
In place?
Correct.
Okay. Is that okay with Sarah?
So that kind of brings me to our the disabilities comments. I know that we spoke to you during the comment period, but after internal discussion, I think the city has a lot of concern about pouring and replacing the apex ramps in place, given that this is a fairly large project of 45 units. There are going to be a lot of families here, as well as retail uses, and it's already an existing heavy pedestrian area and intersection. So I think that more data on the cost and the constraints of replacing or splitting the ramps, I think would be helpful for the Disabilities Commission to understand the constraints at this site. We did go through the memo that that was sent to us and we have reviewed it. However, I think more concrete data like cost estimate, a sketch of what the impacts are going to be would be appropriate for a thorough review.
Sure. So this was a small project review for the size of the building. We would have to relocate 6 signals out here, along with 2 existing bus stops would have to be relocated, along with Boston Warren Stewart catch basin infrastructure and also fire control pull boxes. So it's a significant undertaking for a project of this size. But that said, we can certainly go and put some numbers to the costing for that. But we can certainly meet again before we come back to PAC.
Yeah, that would be extremely helpful for our team to review if we could just get a sketch and hard numbers to a cost estimate, as well as the overall value of the permit for the building, I think is helpful for us to review as well, if that information is available.
Okay, yep. I'm sure we can get that for you.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions from commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the public?
I see none.
Or any, or PIC staff?
Also none.
All right, excellent.
Sorry, James, are there any on-street or off-street parking associated with this project?
There will be 24 off-street parking spaces provided within the building.
Off-street, and the driveway is coming from?
So so at the top of the plan here, there's a shared parking driveway. We're going to reduce that to 12 feet. Vehicles will enter the property that way. And then internally, it works as a one-way system, and they will exit out the other existing curb cut on Green Street, which is going to be reduced to a 10-foot width.
The ground floor purposing and programming of the ground floor units are all residential, or some of it commercial, or a combination?
It's parking and commercial on ground floor.
So have you given consideration of how you might manage on-street parking? Because, just up Green Street, you've got the D station, and there's a huge desire line from a pedestrian perspective and movement of goods and services. I'm going to assume you've given it all the appropriate level of thought to understand how to manage the curbside regulations to service whatever the ground floor commercial components you are anticipating.
They're reserved for police vehicles. There's a police station across the street.
Amy, I didn't want to say that thing, so I was just trying to insert that in a gentle way into the conversation so it doesn't become an awkward moment at a point in the future.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question actually about the driveway entrance at the top of the drawing. Currently, there's a transition that happens at the edge of that driveway from concrete to asphalt sidewalks. What is the planned final state on once this is reconstructed and that driveway is rebuilt? Where will that line be between asphalt and concrete?
Right, so it'll be difficult for me to describe that without showing you a plan, I guess. So right now it's a pretty large curb cut. We're going to potentially reduce that to 12 feet. Obviously, once we construct the curb return on the north side, there will then be a section of probably at least 1 or 2 pounds of concrete installed, and then it will transition back to HMA.
Got it. Okay. Any final questions, comments, commission, public, staff? All right, hearing none. Is 2 weeks enough time to address the things you've heard here today?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. We'll see you back here on the 31st. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
New business item number 4, Ruggles Street, Huntington Avenue, Roxbury, specific repairs grant of location on a set of petitions by National Grid. Would the petitioners please introduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through what's being proposed?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Peter, members of the commission staff, Peter Nagel from National Grid, Customer and Community. I'm joined by my colleague, Sam Uifo, who is the regulator pit engineer, and our permitting consultant, Steve Damiano, who is with Power Engineering. Today, before the commission, you have a request from National Grid to replace a 1991 regulator station in kind at its existing location on the corner of Ruggles and Huntington Avenue. Prior to coming before the commission staff, we did reach out to the main landowner in that area, Wentworth Institute, to try to get some sort of easement to abide by the commission desire to get things out of the public rights of way, but that was unsuccessful. After that unsuccessful attempt, we worked with commission staff and appropriate city agencies to put before you today what we have as the replacement in kind of the existing station. As before you, you can see it's a 3-vault system with a pole mount skater box and 2 vent poles, all of which will be replaced in the existing locations. In addition, National Grid is going to upgrade the existing sidewalk on the entrance to Wentworth Institute with the appropriate pedestrian and handicapped ramps, handicapped accessible ramps. We'd anticipate a roughly 8-week construction cycle if the commission were to grant us this, and that would include the sidewalk and crosswalk restoration. I can.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments from the commission?
We just talked with these guys about this through us in Public Works. We are looking into potentially a different design here to make this more of a raised crossing situation but we would give them the design prior to their construction. So we're still talking about that, but this is, right, we just discussed all this and Jeff's looking into it now.
Amy, forgive me, I wasn't a part of this meeting on Friday. I was out, but I thought that was relative to some of the other locations. I wasn't aware of a raised structure on the Wentworth entrance.
We don't know that it's possible, right? Like right, drainage and all of this other stuff that's involved. So we were going to look into that to, right, if there's not heroic measures, this being a continuous sidewalk is of benefit, particularly in this location, than having it appear like a street opening like this. So we want to go the extra mile to look into this, and we would only, disrupt what you're doing out there if we found that this is doable without relocating anything major.
And would this be part of the commission application process, Amy? That's probably how it would have to transpire, because I don't want to slow you down. I just want you to know that we're looking into it, and we might change the ultimate restoration of the final condition here. But we can go ahead with this, and I don't want to disrupt this effort. But we are looking at this location to hopefully potentially make this a little bit more pedestrian friendly. All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Comments or questions from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, we've gone through quite a bit with the project team here. We'll continue to work with them on the crossing design. They have a few other small pieces of paperwork that they need to submit to our office, but they're aware of that and they'll get that to us in the next few days.
Excellent. Are the proponents comfortable with a public hearing date in 2 weeks?
Yes, we are.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next item of business, West 2nd Street. This is new business number 5, West 2nd Street, West 3rd Street, South Boston, specific repairs, granted location on set of petitions by National Grid. The presenters, please reintroduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through this project.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission staff. Peter Nagel from National Grid, Customer and Community Management, joined by our regulator station engineer, Sam Wifo, and Steve Damiano from Power Engineering, who is our permitting consultant. This location, again, is a replace in almost the exact same location in working fairly diligently with the commission staff and, again, appropriate city agencies, envisioning a new, which the city proposed envisioning a new extended curb line in this area on both sides of the street to facilitate pedestrian access and probably, I would assume, to improve vehicular flow in the area. And it worked out well with our ability to move our existing facility into that newly created triangle, the pedestrian area at West 2nd, at West 3rd. Again, we'd be looking to replace an existing 2-vault system with a safer 3-vault system, upgraded infrastructure in that. Obviously, this location would include a traffic SCADA box, which you can see on the bottom, for lack of better, of the newly created triangle, and there would be vent posts along the newly created sidewalk in that area on West 2nd coming out. In addition, there would be new pedestrian access and crosswalk in that area as well, above what would have been our existing regulator station, which will be removed, and any infrastructure within that would be taken out and then demolished in place with a flowable fill material for any future access or any future development above that. Again, would also work to extend those sidewalks or the crosswalks as well. This existing station serves about 5,300 customers and was originally constructed in 1960. This is a little bit more robust plan in terms of construction. We'd anticipate probably a 12-week replacement schedule on this facility. Again, contingent upon commission approval. And I'll turn it over to...
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll turn it over to any questions.
Sure. So I'll start with one. So there's an existing street light of a somewhat unusual and older design located that's shown on your plan. Am I correct in the thinking that this plan does not relocate that street light or upgrade it in any way, or would that be rebuilt, and has there been a conversation with the street lighting team?
What is it?
No, it's not touched.
No, it is not touched, Commissioner.
So has that been reviewed and discussed at all with the street lighting team? I think given the work that's happening here, it may make sense to look at relocating or upgrading that. I'll also note that that serves as a pole for a street sign for West 2nd Street, and its new location relative to the curb line, the extended curb line, may make it non-functional as a appropriate location for a street name sign.
I know in our comment period that we did reach out to street lighting. I can take another look at that, and our folks can take another look at that with the street lighting folks at the commission's direction.
Okay, that would be great, and include BTD in that conversation for the signage question.
Yeah, we did get comment back from street lighting, but as Peter said, we can circle back and review the plan again with them.
Okay.
And if they move for a replacement of that pole, we can do that, provided it's acceptable with any applicable municipal agency.
Yep. Any
Can I
additional
clarify?
questions? Go ahead.
Sorry. Can I clarify the clearance between the proposed vent locations and the curb line? Yeah, right there. Just a clear dimension.
So the vent poles will be at the edge of the curb. Where they are shown right now is not the right place. They'll be at the edge right here, along the edge.
All right, it might be helpful to have updated plans for the public hearing, just to accurately show the locations of the vent lines, to make sure that they're not an obstruction for the continuous path of travel along the edge of the vault.
Absolutely. So from this, from the existing curb to the new curb is a 4-foot distance. So the vent poles will just be at the very edge here.
And we'll put those dimensions on for the granular location hearing.
And Sarah, I should have mentioned that those doors will be consistent with our agreements that we've had with your agency.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
So one thing here, and I think this is just missing because we've already discussed it and Sam's definitely got it, is that we did some work to get a crosswalk that had moved from one side to the other side, back to the side. There's a bus stop that's across the street here. So where you see the catch basin on top of the word lamp pole, right, there should be a ramp there and a reciprocal ramp on the other side and a crossing to that bus stop. We did some work to make it fit. That's why the curb comes in kind of at the angle that it does right now. So I know that Sam has that on a plan somewhere designed. I just don't think that it's gotten to this.
You seen Amy?
Yep. So at our last meeting, you had moved it to over there, which we saw because, right, we didn't want it in this parking cutout and the catch basin was a contributing factor. So you moved it to the other side, but that doesn't really get to what we want because the bus stop is the Desire line, which is over on the other side of this driveway that you see across the street. It's a pretty non-compliant situation out there, but we do see people, there you go. That's the one that we want. With the curb line that shows the angle coming in. So
we have no issue doing this, but like we discussed with you, Amy, we're not gonna touch the catch basin. And
I don't want
Philip LaRocque has made it clear that that he's not gonna do it.
I don't want to touch the catch basin. I thought that was the point of you show the angled curb line on your specific repair plan. And the point of that was to get to the catch basin and put this exactly as it is shown on this plan.
Correct.
Amy, the one other thing that we discussed the other day was that if we put this crosswalk in, Sam, go back and show that, please. That it would be, that new crosswalk would be in a parking spot. So we just want to clarify that that you want to go ahead with that. Previous discussions that there was a reluctance to have a crosswalk in a parking spot.
No, the reluctance was to not have the crosswalk come into the parking bump-in that you were showing there so that it looked like you were coming into a parking spot, which is why the curb is no longer a bump-in. It comes in at a straight angle to that catch basin to make it clear how that the curb angle is, and then that the parking would start at the other side of the crosswalk. So that's the genesis of this weird curb line, albeit unorthodox, so that you can leave the catch basin where it is, the ramp goes in on the other side of the catch basin, we have a crosswalk in this location.
So Amy, if we put the pedestrian, if we do exactly what you have here, and we put the pedestrian crossing back in that same location, can we put a sign there that says, do not park beyond this point?
Yeah, no, I highly suggest no stopping. Even on the other side of the street where you're bumping out the curb, but you have vents that are on the curb line, I suggest no stopping there would also be, would make a ton of sense. I think we should maybe talk about signage on this corner, but I think that we need to figure out what's happening with that lamp pole. I don't think that the answer is that it stays right there. Where it goes is up to street lighting, but it should move. It does have the street names on it, so like we have to be sensitive to something. If not there, then a street name sign needs to go on the corner. This is also a Heroes Square, which means that it is dedicated to a veteran, so we need to make sure that that is also appropriately relocated.
Yeah. So if you need this, like I mean, we always say, I'll work with you. If you want us to replace the pole or put additional signage, we'll do that. If I take this design here, I'm going to put that pedestrian crossing back here, and then we put a pole here that says, do not park beyond that spot. I'll do that, that's not a problem.
Yeah, and there's probably some parking signage out there that is needing to be relocated based on these curb modifications. So I think that we can just kind of go look at the entirety of this corner, because I think that we start signage at a place that won't be appropriate, but it says no stopping anytime, for a good portion of this.
Okay.
Great.
Any additional comments or questions from the commission? Any comments or questions from PIC staff or members of the public?
Nope, just in an attempt to summarize what we've heard here, the curb lines are going to move to resemble approximately what is shown on the screen right now. The pedestrian crossing is going to be established approximately where that cursor is, and the lamp post that's currently called out in the middle of the sidewalk is going to be relocated to the curb line, as will the vent posts to keep them out of the pedestrian path of travel.
Plus the street signage, plus the street name.
Yes.
Amy said?
Yep, the lamp with all of it that's currently there. All that will get moved out, and we will have new plans for the hearing.
Correct, yes.
And is 2 weeks enough time to address the things you've heard today?
Yes.
All right, well, we will see you again on the 31st. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business item number 6, Blue Hill Avenue, Fabian Street, Dorchester, granted location on a petition by Extenet Systems. Would the presenters please introduce themselves and walk us through what's being proposed?
Good morning. My name's Keenan Borin. I'm with NB&C. We're a consulting firm assisting Extenet in the placement of these fiber ducts throughout the city of Boston. The next 6 petitions all involve Extenet in the installation of these fiber ducts. Extenet is a general statement, is a provider of wireless infrastructure. And in this case, they're installing these fiber ducts in order to connect their small cell network throughout the city. I'm also joined today by Dan Ryan. He's an engineer from NB&C. He's going to offer some technical expertise and help out with the mapping here. So I'll take these one at a time. Obviously, the first one involves fiber run along Blue Hill Ave, running down to Fabian Street. The entire length of the run is manhole to manhole. The run starts on Blue Hill Ave, right near Harvard Street, and runs about 2,269 feet down to Fabian Street, where it turns on there for a short distance and terminates. It's a pretty straightforward run. Along the way, there are 2 spurs that that'll require fiber ducting to 2 telephone poles, quite a short distance, less than 50 feet on Blue Hill Avenue. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward run. We expect that we can cover about 150 feet a day, and each of that distance will be restored fully at the end of the day. Extenet also expects to install shadow ducts along the way as required by the city of Boston. I don't really have any other general comments other than that. If you have some questions, I'd be happy to try to entertain those or have Dan weigh in.
Comments or questions from members of the commission?
Hi, it looks like the Disabilities Commission has a record of an on-street accessible parking space along or adjacent of this run. So during construction, if that spot is affected by construction activities, just please let our office know so we can coordinate a relocation of that spot for the construction activities. And we can be reached at ada@boston.gov.
Yep, we're familiar with your office, and we will, prior to any construction, we'll reach out and make sure that any handicap parking spaces are relocated for the duration of it, and you know, whatever else. I didn't want to get into the specifics. I think we're aware of which ones are where there are ADA issues, but you know, I'll leave it to the construction company to get that covered before we start.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Brim, I have a question for you. I recall, Keenan, whether you've been part of the Externet team from the beginning in the sense when Externet started deploying their infrastructure within the downtown proper area. So I'm not sure, Keenan, if I've seen you back a few years, but if you are new to the equation, one thing which the commission members can benefit is to understand your strategic master plan if there is such a program for the extension of your asset base to our neighborhood streets. Reason being, when through the PIC process, you all get permission to install your infrastructure, which results naturally with our streets being cut.
Sure.
Okay? And some of our neighborhood streets, they are not in the best of conditions, but they are not in the worst of conditions. And our cycle of rebuilding our neighborhood streets take a lesser, I don't want to say a priority, but we don't cycle through the residential streets as often as the streets in high traffic area. So my concern, Keenan, is the fact that you will be chopping up not the brand new street, I'm sure streets that are beyond the 5-year moratorium, but significant cutting up. So it'll be good for the commission members to truly understand your strategic vision while you are, I don't want to say intruding, but you know, you're sort of spreading out into our neighborhoods, which is, you know, not just downtown proper, you know, West Roxbury, Hyde Park, Rossi. Okay? And can you share that type of information so we know the extent through which our residential and even some of the major arterials are going to get chopped up?
Yeah, like Todd made us aware that this question might come up, and we have a kind of a general statement prepared, but if we had to come back with more details in a couple of weeks, we might be able to come back with something more concrete. Dan, would you like to just give them kind of a general overview of what the plan is for Externet over the coming years, and you know where and when you know you think they're going to be in some of these neighborhoods?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Keenan. Hi, Parrot. Dan Ryan. Just to introduce myself, I'm the engineering project manager at NBNC. I handle a lot of the background work with a lot of these designs with Externet. So just a little context of what they are doing is they are building out a network of conduits for their communications, and their idea is to build out as large of a network at this time as possible because they work with all the different carriers. So they'll work with your T-Mobiles, your AT&Ts, your Verizons, anybody. They are putting their conduits in the city of Boston streets right now so that if any future work happens or any of these other carriers approach them in the future, they will already have their backbone infrastructure in the ground through with this project. The locations that they're going to be going is, I do have a KMZ. Can you guys see the Google Earth that has come up on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So the large scope of the whole project is Right now, I only have the underground areas up, and I will show you each area. There are 3 major hubs within the city of Boston that they're going to be looking at, and their first one is in this Hyde Park area. As you can see here, we have Hyde Park Ave itself. Anything where you see this highlighted green box is going to be an underground installation section that we are going to be trying to push through with the PIC staff in the hearings. Long section of Hyde Park Ave is going to be one of the major areas. They will have smaller areas like down here. I believe this is River Street here. At West Street, there'll be some really small ones that we are going to hope that we can put through the admin process. Same as this one here, but the major areas, Cummings Highway here into Blue Hill Ave is a big stretch for them. At River Street, another decent stretch here on Blue Hill Ave. American Legion Highway here, another couple sections on Hyde Park Ave. A really long section of Washington Street is a major target of theirs. It starts all the way down here from Beach Street and will go all the way up past the Arbor Way, up into South Street. That's a really long section. It's a section, to be honest, they didn't quite want to do. However, there really is no aerial infrastructure in order to be able to hang any fiber in that area. So underground is really the only option to service that area. And the other part of the city that we're going to be going into is East Boston. And that is going to be up over by the airport. We did already have our hearing, you may remember, on the Maverick Square area. We talked about that one. We still remember all the comments. You know, we do remember that, you know, this section was recently redone, and you're very concerned about how we restore the pavement in that area to make sure it looks very clean. That's what they will continue to do. There is a section that is going to come off of that area, continuing on Summer Street and head back up to Maverick Street to cover the area to the west there. And then it's really just a couple of random ones on Maverick Street, Cottage Street, which we are going to be working with Denise's team. We did have that one set up for a hearing. However, Boston Water and Sewer are doing a future project in that area, so we are redoing our design for that area. The real large section up here is going to be on Meridian Street. And then Saratoga Street, Bennington Street area is going to be rather long stretches as well. And like I said, the idea is so that they can have their conduits in the ground available to them with enough fiber and dark fiber in those conduits so that for any future projects, they're not opening up the streets again. They're going to have the fiber there already, and at that point, for anything new in these areas, they'll just be able to pull laterals.
And just an editorial comment, and then I'll be quiet for the benefit of the fellow commission members. Something I would like you to visualize or sort of synchronize with the way I am seeing things as a public works staff person. So imagine a street where it is not brand spanking new, but it's not 100 years old. You know, it's serviceable, it's 7 to 10 years. However, the street does not have any current cuts. Okay, so it's more, and the Washington Street corridor in Rossi, West Roxbury is a good example where the street may look a little bit old, but there are no current cuts to the extent which you are going to cut it. So I would like you, Dan, to visualize from the collective users of that street, how that very first cut is going to be, that is going to run parallel to your drive for a long stretch. And that is our concern. I don't know what the solution is. There are many commission members who can come into the conversation. It is the impact of that first cut visually how it looks, and it might stay for quite a few years. So that's our concern then. As much as you are showing Google photographs or Google Maps, it will be good then for you to show us the current conditions of these long runs, what it looks like, and what that first scar is, C-A-R, because that's what it's going to be. You will cut the street, you will patch it. There's going to be a visual difference in terms of the settlements and the width and the composition and the alignment. So it's how an asset looks like. So we would appreciate your consideration. As the purveyors of these assets in the city, we owe the community a responsibility to ensuring that these roads look like half-decent roads. Okay?
Agreed.
So, thank you.
From the transportation side, you guys are attacking some pretty interesting corridors that I think that we struggle with some of our own fiber connections. So I think that for some of this stuff, as you get ready to do this, I think if you could come in and sit down with BTD, so we could discuss how we might want to actually populate some of the city shadow in some of these areas. And I think that really for some of the stuff, it's going to be kind of where handholds fall will be a lot of kind of our concern, making sure that we're leaving them near signals, et cetera. So I think that everything that you showed on that future map is some areas that are of issue for us as well. So I think that if we can be a part of these builds, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Just to follow up a little bit on Para's question, I think it would be helpful for, speaking for myself and hopefully for other members of the commission, to understand the process by which ExteNet goes through to review alternatives to trenching and new conduit installation. In particular, looking at opportunities for leasing existing conduit, city shadow conduit, or leasing access to existing fiber networks, of which there are some throughout the city, to facilitate the types of installations that ExteNet is planning. I think we're sort of sympathetic to the need to have connectivity for the services that you provide, but also, as others have stated, some concerns about the impacts that has on our roadway. And a desire to avoid those impacts where they are avoidable. So now or at a future hearing, I would love to get additional detail about your review process and what other options are considered in these specific cases and in general before making a decision to come to the PIC for permission to cut the street.
Sure, and I can give you kind of a brief overview. So our number one goal is always to go aerial, if we can. So if there is a way to put them up on the utility poles and have the fiber lines run aerially, it's much cheaper construction-wise, so that is always the goal. If that's not possible, especially in a city like Boston where there's not a lot of aerial infrastructure, just like you said, there are some avenues to try to use existing conduit that is in the ground that is not being used. We did explore that route with Verizon. Verizon was supposed to have a lot of shadow duct in the city. It turns out when we did the surveys for those, a lot of those conduits were actually crushed and unusable. So that's what turned us away from that. As far as using other fiber networks, the areas that I showed you are really, most of those areas are not really the heart of Boston that we're going to be serving with the fiber. The heart of Boston, we actually are building out a network in that area too, something to the tune of about 380 small cells. ExteNet is going to be using Verizon fiber for those ones. So that's why we are not going to be cutting in those in the heart of the city. So they did look into that avenue for that particular area. For the outskirts of the city, though, it is an area where they really weren't able to find any agreements, and it's an area where they would really like to have their own infrastructure in the ground for any future use.
Thank you for that. Any additional questions or comments?
Sorry, Dan, just a point of clarification. for amplification. When you take an aerial option, i.e. you are attaching your assets to a pole that is owned by Eversource and or Verizon, do you have to pay them an annual or a monthly attachment fee, or is it a one-time fee?
It's a one-time license fee.
So it's a one-time license for the duration of, so it's not an annual thing, you just pay one shot and that's it for the duration of your occupying that space on the pole. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And when you install conduits on the city street, I don't think we sort of, the PIC gives you that space, you install your assets, and then you install additional assets beyond your needs to service others, right? And you can rent or lease that space to private entities on an ongoing basis. There's no financial transaction between the city and you, but you are given that right through the city. Is that correct?
Correct, and they are also installing shadow duct for the city specifically.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Any additional comments or questions from members of the commission? Any comments or questions from PIC staff?
No, although Mr. Kirkpatrick, with the public, would you like to speak on this one, or are you waiting for the West Roxbury petition, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Based on your comments just now, are you asking Extenet to come back with more information, or are we going to continue with the agenda items as published?
We expect to continue with the agenda items. This is a new business hearing, so there will not be a sort of formal vote for anything on this matter until 2 weeks from now at the earliest.
Thank you very much.
We will go through with the additional agenda items.
Thank you, sir. I'll defer until item 11. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from members of the public or KC staff? All right.
No, I think we're all set.
Excellent. Are the proponents prepared to come back in 2 weeks for a public hearing?
Yes.
All right, excellent. We will see you then for that. And moving on to our next order item of new business, which is, let me make sure I'm in the right place. Here, new business 7, Cummins Highway, Favre Street, Brockton Street, Woodhaven Street, Dorchester, granted location on a petition by Extenet Systems, Inc. The petitioners, please reintroduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through the proposal.
Be happy to. Again, I'm here on behalf of Extenet. My name is Keenan Bryn. I'm here with Dan Ryan. He's supporting us with some technical expertise, and I'll give you a quick overview of the project itself. Again, this second project is obviously involves a fiber duct as well. This particular one is a little shorter than the previous one. It starts on Favre Street and makes a left-hand turn onto Cummins Highway and continues down Cummins Highway for the bulk of the run, which is at 833 feet. It actually terminates just beyond Cummins Highway. Along the way, there are 2 I would call spurs. These are like fiber ducts that will peel off from Cummins Highway. One would travel just onto the beginning of Brockton Street, and the second one travels just slightly down Woodhaven Street, and then it would continue on beyond there, and finally, as I said, terminates on Cummins Highway just about the intersection of Woodhaven Street, and then it's finished at that point. Again, 833 feet for this one. We would anticipate that we'd be able to cover about 150 feet a day and restore each section along the way. And again, I'll repeat it again. We expect that we'll be placing shadow ducts as required by the city along this run. Those are the particulars. If you have any specific questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Members of the commission?
Sorry, Chief. Keenan, I believe I stand to be corrected. This segment of Cummings Highway is under consideration for reconstruction and redesign. The relevant part is the current location of the sidewalks might be extended. So what I'm concerned about is that the location of your duct bank may be in conflict with a street reconstruction project in terms of the vertical clearances that are needed for lights and all of that good stuff. So Todd, could you please connect Mr. Brain with with Jeffrey to make sure that the two projects are not going to be on top of each other?
Certainly.
Keenan, the road is getting a road diet. The new Edgestone line is going to be somewhere else. The median is coming out, so it's a complete reconfiguration of where the utilities are. Last thing I want is for you to spend money, and you know not my position, the department's position. If you need to move because of work which we do, you will move at your expense, and it will be an awkward moment if you.
Do you know when this is planned, or is there a plan in place for it?
Absolutely. We hope to hit construction before the year is out. So it is very mature in terms of where the curb lines are. Mr. Lyman will give you guidance as to who to connect with in the public works team.
Okay.
That's the Cummings Highway segment part of it.
Any additional questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, we're all set on this one.
Would the petitioners like to be placed on the agenda for 2 weeks from now on the 31st?
I think we'd like to reserve our spot. We'll have to dig into the Cummins Highway situation in the meantime, but yeah.
All right. We'll plan for that, and if that needs to be extended, just work with the PIC staff on that. Thank you very much. Moving on to new business item number 8, Hyde Park Avenue, Everett Street, Hyde Park, grant of location on a petition by Extenet Systems Incorporated. Can the petitioners please reintroduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through this proposal?
Be happy to. Again, Keenan Brand, Extenet Systems. I'm here with Dan Ryan, who's providing engineering support. We're here to discuss a installation of a fiber duct in the city streets of Boston. This one here in particular is a more of a lengthy run. It's 2,064 linear feet. It actually starts on Everett Street, comes out, and then turns left onto Hyde Park Avenue, and largely proceeds down Hyde Park Avenue for the duration of it. Along the way, there are a couple of spurs that connect to light poles. One sort of halfway down, and then there's a second spur at the intersection of Dana Street. And if you look closely, there's also a couple of MWRA crossings. I'd like to note that we've been in contact with the MWRA, and we've got permits to do the crossings here. The actual fiber line itself will continue down Hyde Park Avenue quite a distance and terminate just after Factory Street. Like the previous ones, we expect somewhere in the vicinity of 150 linear feet per day in terms of construction, and we'll certainly try to abide by the city requirements for any kind of shadow ducting. And largely a straightforward shot here. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
So this is another location in which we may have some potential for conflict with city projects. There is a resurfacing project that is planned for the this coming construction season along Hyde Park Avenue. So I think Todd Lyman can connect you with our construction team to talk through what that timing looks like and the sequencing looks like. But we do not want to, of course, see this street trenched, Hyde Park Avenue trenched, immediately after it is resurfaced. So we'll need to figure out a way to coordinate those things.
Obviously, so Tom will get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Is there some way we could, like, rather than find out on this call, like, what streets might be, is there a kind of a list that we could, we certainly reach out, by email to the different department agencies and things like that, but just trying to find out, like, maybe in advance, what might be happening.
The city does have a map of its planned capital improvements on the website, and PIC staff can definitely get you a link to that. I will say that it is our best efforts at conveying what we intend to do. In this particular case, I don't think you would find Hyde Park Ave on there because it was a relatively recent decision based on the availability of some extra unexpended funds that allowed this to happen. So we do not always know, but Cummins Highway, for example, has been noted, and there's quite a bit of information online about the progress of that project. So we can get you access to that capital map, and that would certainly encourage you to use that in your future planning.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Now, do you know for a fact that this section of Hyde Park Ave is being repaved, or is it the whole stretch?
I believe it is this southern section of Hyde Park Ave, or at least there is some overlap. I don't know the exact extent of the repaving, so that conversation they'll have with the Public Works construction team should be informative.
Okay, all right, make a note of that. Thank you.
Keenan, in addition to the comments made by the chief, things in addition to the comments made by the chief, points you should be mindful of. Again, if you are new to this equation, on major arterials such as this, your trench line is going to cut up very specialized crosswalks, traffic signal loops, conduit, and it is incumbent upon your contractor to fix those rather than just keeping a trench. And if you want to know what I'm saying, just drive up and down Hyde Park Ave and see the abundance of cuts that haven't been properly restored, either through specialized crosswalks. So these major corridors, the city has made millions of dollars of investments, and we want to protect those investments in terms of its operational capacity, capabilities, and its use.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your concern.
Thank you, Keelan.
Again, if we could somehow coordinate, and get in here before the paving happens, obviously that would be ideal for both parties.
Any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Any additional questions or comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, we're all set on this.
Would the petitioners like to be placed back on the agenda in 2 weeks?
Yes, we would, please.
All right, we'll see you then on this matter. Moving on to new business item number 9, American Legion Highway, Canterbury Street, Cummins Highway, West Roxbury, granted location on a petition by Extenet Systems Incorporated. Would the petitioners please reintroduce themselves and go over what is being proposed?
Yes, thank you again. Keenan Bryn here on behalf of Extenet Systems. I'm joined by Dan Ryan, who's providing engineering support for a installation of a fiber duct bank in the city of Boston. This particular duct fiber run is relatively short. It's 523 feet. It starts on American Legion Highway and continues through an intersection with Cummins Ave, and then proceeds down Canterbury Street for the bulk of the run. There's also an MWRA crossing associated with this, which we have a permit for. I don't envision any other particular issues with this one here, but certainly we'll pay attention to any handicapped issues that may arise prior to construction. We expect that we can cover about 150 feet per day like the other ones, and we'll restore that on a daily basis. And again, the shadow ducting will be installed as required by the city of Boston. And I'd be happy to take any questions you have for this particular fiber run.
Keenan, do you know whether you will be the first one who is cutting up this intersection? Or are you aware, do you have any staff that has a physical inspection of what the roadway asset looks like? Or is it just, straightforward design based on Google Maps or survey information that you get? Do you have a sense of whether this intersection has been cut up, whether you will be the 10th cut, or whether you are going to be the first cut?
Yeah, I've actually only seen it from Google Earth, so I can't, specifically say that it's been cut or not cut at this point. Is that something you'd like us to determine prior to the next meeting?
Yes, I think, Keenan, it will be good for you to get a sense of the intrusion which you are causing, again, we want to balance this conversation. We want to make sure that you have the capacity to follow your business model, but there has to be some acknowledgement on your part as to the possible restoration that might be needed to support your first cut versus the 10th cut.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the point I'm trying to make. If you are the 20th cut, I'll be quiet. But if you are the first cut, then you need to be mindful of what you are proposing. So in addition to these Google Maps, it will be good, Keenan, for you or one of your team members to actually walk the sites to get a sense of what is it that you're proposing.
Yeah. Let me just ask Dan. Dan, I know we have certainly people that are on the ground at these sites. I mean, is that something we're mindful of, Dan, in terms of choosing a route, or is it the condition of the road kind of secondary?
The condition of the road is something that we'll have to take into account after we choose our design route, and the reason being because the design route is based on the need of the communications in the area. We do certainly take a look at the road condition para. One thing that we are not privy to is whether or not a street is, we know if it's a guaranteed street, it's obviously been paved over, within the last 5 years, so we do understand how those work. What we do not know is if it was paved over 7 years ago, are we going to be the first ones to make that cut in the new pavement, or has somebody else done it previously? But that is something we certainly can take care of and look into during any pre-con walks.
Thank you, Dan. We truly appreciate if you can just spend a little bit of time, boots on the ground, and to get a sense of are you the first or the 10th?
Sure.
Okay, and that, if you can use that as a guidance rather than the end product through your design process, that will be helpful to us.
Just to extend that slightly, I think, it would be appreciating that you have specific routing needs. There may, in some cases, be more than one way to get from A to B. And so looking at that, the potential routes in context of the current condition of the roadway, and with the eye towards minimizing the amount of cutting happening in roadways that have otherwise not been cut since they were last resurfaced, I think would be very much appreciated to see that work happen as part of this planning process.
Absolutely.
This won't be a fun intersection to work with. You're gonna cut our loops, so I think that you should be very clear about where they are and how to fix them, because you're not gonna wanna be out here for very long.
Understood.
Any additional questions or comments from members of the commission? Any questions or comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, none.
All right, are you prepared to come back for this in 2 weeks?
Yes, we will.
Excellent. All right, we will see you then. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, new business number 10, South Street, West Roxbury, granted location on a petition by Extenet Systems Incorporated. Would the petitioners please reintroduce themselves and walk us through this proposal?
Yeah, certainly. My name is Keenan Brin. I'm here on behalf of Extenet Systems. We are proposing and petitioning for a fiber duct run in the city of Boston over in the Jamaica Plain area involving mainly South Street. This fiber run is relatively lengthy. It's 1,933 feet. It starts on South Street, crosses the Arbor Way, and then continues down South Street. There's another one of these spurs that leads off to a pole on South Street for a very short run, and then there's a kind of a second spur near Jamaica Street. But the fiber line actually continues on South Street. It terminates on South Street just beyond Jamaica Street. We're not aware of any other MWRA permits or anything of that nature for this, but in terms of the handicap requirements, we're prepared to follow those. Again, like the other, we expect we can cover 150 feet per day and restore that on a daily basis. And the last item, obviously, the shadow ducting, we're prepared to comply with that whatever way the city sees fit. I hope I didn't go too quickly on that, but that's a fairly straightforward run. If you have any other questions or concerns similar to the other ones, please let us know.
So a question, I believe this route proposed will traverse the intersection of South Street and the Arbor Way, and in doing so is going to cut across some existing, relatively recently installed pedestrian and bike facilities, including striped and colored bike crossing lanes going across South Street. Can you speak to how you expect to do restoration of those pavement markings that are likely to be disrupted by this?
I did notice that when I was out there. Dan, do we have any kind of specifications about the bike markings, the lanes, and how we're going to recreate that on a traffic management plan or something?
It would be shown on the traffic management plan, Keenan, but generally what they do, from what I've seen, is they will do the patching right away after they do the trench, and they'll do the full length and do the patching, and then after that's complete, they'll go back and do the painting. However, for these high density areas where you guys are sensitive about, it can be something as simple as if you need it to be, let's say that section needs to be done as night work. They do it that night. They will repaint it that night once they do the patching of the trench.
Okay, I want to sort of make sure that as this work takes place, the specific markings for both pedestrian and the bicycle facilities are their safety infrastructure, and they were designed very specifically to produce safe crossings for vulnerable road users at a major intersection. So I want to make sure that there's a commitment on the part of ExteNet to restore the markings to the sort of current condition or its intended condition, in a sort of robust way, because we have seen a history of some of these types of pavement markings not being fully restored, and that has safety concerns that it raises for the city. So is that a commitment that you're comfortable making?
Yeah, no, they're fully aware that anytime they cut up a crosswalk or a bike lane or really any lane marking that is on the road, that it's their job and responsibility to restore that back to the previous condition that it was in before they opened it up.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
What's the expected duration for something like that, Dan? Was that something they would have done within, 48 hours or the same day, or?
That's really a question that the construction team would have to answer. We can get that answer though.
Keenan, Dan, not to labor the point, but to echo or amplify the chair's comments. So especially when your cars cross bike lanes, okay? Cars crossing bike lanes. The settlement issues of the compaction which you do, the consequences are massively amplified when a bicycle has to go through that area versus a car, okay? So you all need to truly then understand how the city's roadways are being repurposed for a very vulnerable traveler. The cars don't care, pedestrians, you're not going to fall just because you go through a settle, but a bicycle is going to veer course, and it can get into a very awkward moment. So your settlements are extremely a huge concern for me and my team here. So the compaction has to be done properly when it is going through a bicycle track, and then you need to do follow-up stuff also then. This is not just you folks, this is a system-wide issue where the subsequent freestyle cycles create compaction issues that are very troublesome. It kind of bothers me a bit, to the point where we may have to re-question the interruptions or the intrusions to the city's right of way. Okay? So you can help us to weather that storm by impressing upon your contractors, because we don't have enough staff to run around to chase you folks to do the QC/QA. So help me out on that front, Dan. Can you?
Absolutely. We'll make sure that the message is loud and clear, especially for the bike lanes. We obviously don't want any uneven surfaces after they leave the area, causing them to possibly trip and fall off the bike or anything like that. We want to make sure it's restored into the condition that it was prior to opening.
some forethought goes a long way, right? So if you look at what's above ground and kind of stay out of it, right? Stay out of turn lanes, you don't have to repaint legends and stuff of that nature. So like, if you look at what's above there, you can pick a route that will cause you minimal heartache when comes time for restoration. Traffic loops 100% included in that.
Right.
Any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Any questions or comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, none.
All right. Would you like to be on the agenda again in 2 weeks?
Absolutely, yes, thanks.
All right, we will see you there. Moving on to new business item 11, Washington Street, Poplar Street, Murray Hill Road, West Roxbury, granted locations, and a set of petitions by Externet Systems Incorporated. Would the presenters please reintroduce themselves and walk us through this set of work?
Happy to. Again, Keenan Brin, representing Externet Systems for their fiber duct petition. I'm here with Dan Ryan, who's providing engineering support. And I'll proceed now with the actually the last petition that we have in front of you. This particular petition actually involves two different fiber runs. We initially submitted these as two different applications, but it's really one continuous run. I think, Dan, you have NB20 up first, right? Yes. So this particular run here starts on Washington Street near Kittredge, comes down, and right away there are a couple of small spurs off that run over to a couple of poles that we're connecting to. Other than that, it's a pretty straight run down Washington Street. This one here covers about 1,639 feet, you know, kind of similar to some of those other runs on Hyde Park Avenue, Washington Street. I don't see any particular issues here with MWRA permits or things like that. I didn't hear anything from city agencies regarding this as well, but we're certainly prepared to, you know, deal with any handicap issues. And again, the bike lanes and, you know, the traffic management plans will certainly provide. This particular run, again, like the others, expecting, you know, the same construction schedule, 150 feet per day, and we'll certainly go ahead and install the shadow duct as required by the city and whatever else they may want to see on here. So with that said, there's also, coming out of the same manhole, going heading north, was a separate fiber run, but it's continuous along Washington Street. This one here starts at that same manhole. It covers heading north and goes about 2,567 feet on Washington Street. It actually runs down Polar and continues for a small stretch there. I don't know how it's probably 50 or 75 feet down there, and then continues on Washington Street. Is actually a second spur farther along Murphy Hill Road, and again, it probably goes down there about 50 and 75 feet. It continues on Washington Street to the end, and that is that's the continual length of the project is 1,639 feet to the heading south, and then heading north it's 2,567. This whole continuous run is about 4,200 feet linear. Again, we'd be prepared, obviously, to do whatever shadow ducting is necessary, and it's our anticipation that you know, we would be able to cover 150 feet a day and restore that on a daily basis. If you have any specific concerns about the bike lanes or crosswalks, you know, we'll certainly be happy to try to address those between now and the next couple of weeks. And same goes for the handicap access. We'll be prepared to deal with that as well. If you have any questions regarding this this run on Washington Street, we can take those questions now.
I mean, I'll appreciate that. I'll start with just by noting how long of a run this is. I mean, this will really disrupt the entire, almost the entire length of Washington Street within, you know, from this area around Roslindale. You know, there are I would be, as you come back next week, I think it would be, or in 2 weeks, whenever you are back on the agenda, I think it would be helpful to, again, focusing on those pavement markings that are going to be impacted by this. There's a dedicated bus lane that has quite a bit of writing and other, red thermoplastic or red treatment of some kind. I'm not sure what the material is along the northbound stretch of Washington Street. There are innumerable crosswalks on here. So this has the potential to be extraordinarily impactful to travel on this street and safety on this street if restoration is not done in a exceptional manner. And so I think it would be helpful to hear sort of a little bit more detail as you look at the totality of the corridor you're proposing to trench, what pavement markings you anticipate being impacted by this, so that we can have a very clear commitment that is sort of quantified in terms of your expectations for restoration of those markings as this project traverses. But there's a lot here that we really care deeply about, as with every street, but the length of this makes it particularly impactful.
I understood that 4,200. Again, we had actually submitted these as two different projects initially, roughly 2,000, feet each or somewhere in that vicinity. I don't know if we could break it up, Dan, and, do them at separate times, but I mean, I'm not sure how much.
I think the concern is less about the times. The concern is more that if not restored exceptionally well, the scope of impact because of the length of this total project is extraordinary. And so really the focus is that commitment, that understanding of what you will be disrupting on the surface, and as much clarity as you can offer as to exactly how those disruptions will be restored at the conclusion of the work. So and in particular with that focus on safety, pavement markings, bus lanes, things of that sort.
Yeah, I did drive this stretch of road, and I can appreciate the amount of pedestrian traffic and bus and vehicular traffic. So yeah, we'll try to have some answers for you.
Hi, Yasha. And just in reference to that, I can't promise that I'll be able to get the correct person on the call for the hearing due to his time constraints. But what I will do is I will reach out to the head of construction for Extenet, see if he is possibly available to actually come on, and you can hear it directly from his mouth on his restoration efforts, if that'll make you feel a little bit more comfortable.
I think that would be helpful to hear that both from, really in the context of all of these projects. I think these nearly mile-long runs are particularly, concerning, but explanation of restoration plans would be appreciated.
Understood.
Other commissioners, comments, questions?
I did just want to call out that we do have a record of 2 accessible on-street parking spaces along this run. And I think they are especially sensitive given just the location in Rossi Square and along the stretch of Washington. So we just did want to point that out for the record.
Thank you.
Apologize, my audio cut out for just a moment there. Any additional questions or comments from the commission? Any questions or comments from PIC staff? And I see we have a member of the public with his hand raised as well. Mr. Kirkpatrick, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If allowed, Mr. Brin and Mr. Ryan, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat room, and I would like to be kept informed of your schedule once it is approved. I am a member of the board of directors of the Roslindale Business Group, and we work at a grassroots level with individual business. And through the pandemic and some infrastructure changes to Roslindale Square with respect to bus stops and parking and a few other things, our business community throughout that stretch is having sustainability issues. And so it'll be important that we stay in the loop with respect to this construction once it is started. I understand the value of this, but there may be days when certain merchants will need to change out their delivery schedules. Some of them may even decide not to open on a particular day if they know that you're going to be in the area. So I think this is important. I can also extend information to at least 4 area neighborhood organizations. And if we keep them in the loop, that might limit the number of complaints about non-notified construction to the 311 line at the City of Boston. I think that way, if we keep everybody in the loop, I think everything will go that much more smoothly. And one last comment, I happen to know that Verizon has an existing major high-speed OC trunk line that is buried in Washington Street. It's been there since at least 2006. And I know this because there's a connection into the community center building that's been there for at least that long before FiOS came out. So I'm sure your engineers will have that on the maps, but worth mentioning in public. And thank you for my ability to speak here today. And I'll put my contact information in the chat room. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Brin.
So Dennis, we'll look for that. I think I have your email. Is that the best way to get you?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple for the business group. And that way, once it's in that email, I can pass it on directly through our newsletter or to individual merchants that may be impacted. And I might have to hit the pavement and talk door to door.
Okay, all right. I'll look for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick, for joining, for your comments, for your patience getting to this point in the agenda. And I appreciate the proponents taking seriously the needs of the business communities that are impacted by this kind of work and working with them to minimize that negative impact. Any additional comments or questions from members of the public or PIC staff?
No, I think we're all set.
All right. 2 weeks sufficient time to come back on this one?
Yeah, we'll expect us back in 2 weeks on this one as well. And thank you for your time. I know we had a pretty good chunk of it tied up here. So
it was, quite a few, but appreciate you walking through it with us. We'll see you back on the 31st for this and a number of other items.
Yes, yes.
All right, so moving on to our last 2, we have new business item number 13, which is 93 Devon Street, Normandy Street, Dorchester, granted location. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. New business item number 12, 17 Caldwell Street, Maffa Way, Charlestown, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Would the proponents please introduce themselves, their affiliations, and the scope of the work being proposed?
Yes, good morning. My name is Ross Bilodeau. I'm representing Verizon New England this morning. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, no problem. Do I have permission to share my screen here?
Yes. And before you do, I just want to check in with the Commissioner from the Disabilities Commission. Did you have an item we needed to address? All right.
Yes, unfortunately, Chairperson Hodge, I did have a conflict, a prior conflict at noon, and I will have to hop off for this business item and the rest of the agenda.
All right, Mr. Lemmy, do we still have a quorum?
Yes, we're fine.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us and letting us know.
Great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Bilodeau, please continue.
Okay, sure. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Reaching out for this petition, Verizon is looking to place 330 feet of new conduit from an existing manhole, route number 1035A, located on Maffa Way at the intersection of Caldwell Street, to an existing handhole in front of number 17 Caldwell Street, for the purpose of providing new service, extending some fiber onto Caldwell Street. So here's our sketch down below. You can see the existing manhole. Pretty simple, right down Caldwell here. to our existing handhole in front of number 17. This is also to include a city shadow duct, which is a 4-inch duct with 4 inner ducts inside of it, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Thank you. Members of the commission, any questions, comments on this? PAC staff, or members of the public, any questions or comments?
No, all set on this.
All right. Would you like to be on the agenda in 2 weeks on the 31st?
Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Well, we will see you there. Moving on now correctly to new business item number 13, 93 Devon Street, Normandy Street, Dorchester, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Would the petitioners please reintroduce themselves, their affiliations, and walk us through what is being proposed?
Sure. Again, my name is Ross Bilodeau, representing Verizon New England. I have my plan in front of you. This is for 422 feet of new conduit from an existing pole 8 in front of 71 Devon Street to another existing handhole, which is located in front of number 93 Devon Street. Same idea, looking to provide some new services, fiber optic, extend from our existing network to that location. So let me bring that. So you can see existing pole 8 here, coming down Normandy Street a little bit up to our existing handhole in front of 91 and 93 Devon Street.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? Any questions or comments from PIC staff or members of the public?
No, all set.
All right, 2 weeks ready for the agenda in 2 weeks?
I'll be there.
Excellent. All right, we'll see you back on then. And our final new business item, 435 to 465 Geneva Avenue, Dorchester, granted location on a petition by Verizon New England Incorporated. Petitioner, please reintroduce yourself and your affiliation and walk us through this work.
Sure. Once again, Ross Bilodeau, representing Verizon New England. This petition's a little different here. We're looking to place 437 feet of new conduit from an existing manhole, route number 11, manhole number 79, which is located at 455 Geneva Avenue. It's actually going to 2 existing handholes, one on each side of the street by 451 Geneva Avenue. Again, this one will also include a city shadow duct. So on our first plan here, you can see us coming out of the existing manhole number 79, up Geneva Ave, continuing across from Bloomfield Street. And like I described, coming across to one handhole and continuing to the second handhole. I guess this was originally 2 petitions, but you had asked us to combine them at some point. At a point in time I was not privy to be honest with you. But here we are again, combining these 2 petitions into one project.
Questions or comments from members of the commission? Questions or comments from PIC staff and members of the public?
Just one thing, I don't know that I've seen water and sewer site plan approval for this revised run. I think they have approved the run to one node and then a separate run to another node, but since you've combined these, I'd just like to have you double check with water and sewer that they're okay with this run specifically in the next 2 weeks if possible.
Okay, sure. I believe they have reviewed this and approved it. I'll make sure that is set in stone.
Okay, yeah. The only plan that I've seen just has just the one, so just give me the updated plan, please.
Understood.
Thank you.
Excellent. And we will you be ready for the 31st for this one as well?
Yes, should be. Hope so.
All right, excellent. We will plan to see you there. So that concludes our agenda for today. Mr. Liming, is there any other matters we need to address?
We are all set.
All right, excellent. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time and patience today. See you soon.